Purdue starts out conference play with a dominant win in Piscataway. Find out what they did right on today's Locked On Boilermakers.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network, where it's your team every day. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. I talk to Boilermakers every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I also write about Purdue for Purdue 24/7. And we have a fun reactionary episode to the first game of Big Ten conference play. It was a fun one, and Purdue dominated. We'll get into all of that today, but first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So, like I said, it's a fun night. It was a fun win in Piscataway. Purdue goes on the road for the first game of conference play this year. And it was one you could look at and say, maybe Purdue is on trap watch here, because Rutgers has been far from the top of the Big Ten this year. They had a really bad loss earlier in the season to Central Connecticut, but you can never take anything for granted in the Big Ten. And that's what we talked about on the pregame show. It felt like going into this game, Purdue really didn't take anything for granted. And they came out hot. Rutgers also came out hot with a couple early threes. But ultimately, Purdue's offensive efficiency was just too good for Rutgers to compete. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what went right for Purdue. We'll talk about who showed up, and then we'll finish off today's episode talking about what's next for the Boilermakers going into 2026, going into more of these conference games. But let's talk about what went right for Purdue in this matchup against Rutgers. And when we're talking about what went right, I figure you have to look at the margin that we've been looking at a lot of points this year, and that is the rebounding numbers. Once again, Purdue won in the rebounding numbers tonight, 36-25. And that's one that you look at when you look at the matchup. And we talked about it once again in the pregame show. Trey Kaufman Renn, he's an elite rebounder this year. That's all that you can really say about what he's become alongside Oscar Clough, is that Trey Kaufman Renn is now an elite rebounder. He had another big night, a double-double, 13 rebounds in this game. But his matchup against Dylan Grant was going to be the really interesting part of this game for me, because Dylan Grant isn't a guy, he plays power forward for the Scarlet Knights, but he's not that traditional guy that's going to rebound the ball at the level that Trey Kaufman Renn is going to do. Yes, he's Rutgers' lead scorer, but he's not a top rebounder the way that Trey Kaufman Renn is. So that was the matchup that I wanted to look at tonight in terms of where Purdue would be, and if they're able to limit Dylan Grant. And Trey Kaufman Renn was certainly able to limit Grant on the boards. He only had 2 rebounds in this game, shot the ball 10 times, but the 2 rebounds is what sticks out to me. When you're able to keep Dylan Grant off of the boards, and like I said, he averages 6.6 rebounds a game, so he's their second leading rebounder, but not that guy that's going to be in double digits. The way that Trey Kaufman Renn is going to do, you have to exploit that. And for Purdue, I feel like they did a good job keeping Rutgers off the glass tonight. And that's why you come out of here with a win. Rutgers, like to my point, they did shoot the ball fairly well in this game. They actually shot the ball a lot better than Purdue did from 3 in this game, but they just didn't shoot at the volume necessary to win this game. They only shot the ball 17 times for 3, made 8 of those shots. 2 of those came really early. Purdue shot at 38%, a very high volume, probably Purdue's highest volume so far this year, shooting it 10 times, 10 for 26. But ultimately, it didn't come back to bite them. Rutgers shot the ball, just not enough volume for them to do much. And Purdue, they only win this game by 16 points, but that doesn't tell the whole story in this game. Purdue was dominant, had a 13-point halftime lead. They got that lead up into the 20s in the second half. But ultimately, those couple minutes towards the end, Rutgers, they kept the pressure on, kept the score a little bit closer than what the overall score throughout the game was. So Rutgers, they do keep it within the spread, I believe. The spread was 16.5 by our friends at FanDuel, but they unfortunately do not win this game if you're a Scarlet Knights fan. But From a Purdue fan perspective, you have to be happy about the way that the Boilermakers played in this game. They played start to finish great basketball. And everyone, it was a team effort tonight, notably Braden Smith, notably Trey Kaufman Renn, who we'll get to when we talk about who showed up for Purdue. But everyone played good basketball tonight. And it was one of those games where you look at and you say, Purdue handled business on the road. They did everything that you could have possibly asked them to do in this game. The rack has been good for Purdue in recent years, but you can look back 5 years ago when Rutgers, they won a few of those games, 4 out of 5, looking back into COVID times where COVID was the last time that Purdue scored 70 points in the rack. So this hasn't been an easy environment in the past for Purdue to play in. Although we played Rutgers better in previous years, you can look at that history and go into this game, say, there may have been a little bit of anxiousness for some people, the opener of Big Ten play, but ultimately Purdue, they go in, they handle business, and they win this game. And now we're looking at a couple performances where you look at Texas Tech, you look at Eastern Illinois. Now you look at this game against Rutgers tonight, and these are 3 great performances from the Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue has strung together 3 amazing performances. And it looks like they're starting to kind of hit that stride that we knew they could be. Purdue, they've been a good team all year long, but the past 3 games, this Boilermakers team has looked like a different unit entirely. And the way that they've been more comfortable with each other, that chemistry that Braden Smith talked about after the game has certainly been on display. And it's starting to look like a Purdue team that can absolutely make a run into March, absolutely make a run into this conference tournament. This Purdue team looks really, really good right now, and they couldn't have gotten hotter at a better moment. In terms of looking at the team stats, the final few things that I want to hit on before we go over, talk about which players showed up for these teams. The turnovers. Now, this is going to be something for Purdue to keep an eye on. 9-9 in this game. Rutgers actually won, had 14 points off turnovers, whereas Purdue only had 12. Purdue, they were able to be neck and neck with Rutgers, but so far this year, that has been the one thing where Purdue, I'd like them to limit that a little bit, those turnovers and the points off turnovers, because that's really the only area where Purdue has struggled at times this year, looking back into some previous games, but ultimately, it's not the hugest issue right now just because of how efficient this offense is, and it kind of comes with the terrain. You're going to turn the ball over when you pass as often as Purdue does, when you play with that intensity and with that pace that this Purdue offense plays with. So those turnover numbers are the only area where they were kind of neck and neck with Rutgers in this game outside of the shooting numbers. And it's something to look at for Purdue going forward this year. But right now, as long as you're continuing to play with that efficiency, it's not a concern that's going to cost you a game right now. So turnovers, we got to look at them, but keep some context into that. And then the other number, those second chance opportunities, second chance points. With the rebounding comes those second chance points, in Purdue, they converted tonight 13-5. If Purdue is able to do that, if they're able to play within their identity as that rebounding team that can shoot the ball when necessary, but are really able to rack up those second chance opportunities. And we saw it a couple times tonight where the bigs were passing the ball, whether that be Oscar Clough, Jacobson, Trey Kaufman Renn. Those opportunities open up off of rebounds. Rebounding is going to be huge for Purdue this year. Second chance points is going to be huge for Purdue this year. When you're able to win within those margins, when you're able to win those small little areas, that makes you a better basketball team. And I think that Purdue is doing a majority right now. Everything that they need to do those small things right in order to win basketball games. Right now, Purdue is playing at the highest level they've played all season long. And they're going to need it going into the rest of this stretch in 2025, going into the start of conference play in 2026. But right now, Purdue is hot. They're playing great basketball, and they get out of Piscataway with an opening night conference win. 81-65. Purdue gets the win over the Scarlet Knights. Stick with us for this second segment, because I want to talk about who showed up for Purdue, who didn't for Rutgers, and what we can use going forward to determine what players are hot right now and who's not. That's next here on Locked On Boilermakers. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And it's not just for NFL. You can get in on college basketball too. Purdue just narrowly missed out tonight against Rutgers on covering that 16.5-point spread. But if you have Purdue money line, you got to win. So absolutely, it's the easiest way to bet Purdue basketball. It's the easiest way to bet the NFL. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets or college basketball bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Hey guys, if y'all have made it to the second segment, I want to say that I really appreciate you guys being here. If y'all are new to the channel, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. It helps us out a ton as we want to continue bringing this daily Boilermaker content. It's great. We're in the middle of the season, and I'd really appreciate it. It's free, but let's go ahead and jump in to what players showed up tonight for Purdue. We talked about what Purdue did right to win this game. Let's talk about what players had an impact. And we got to talk about the two seniors first. Absolutely. Those were the guys tonight that got it done for Purdue. We'll talk Trey Kaufman Renn first because he had the double-double. That matchup against Dylan Grant, it was big all night long. His ability to get on the boards against a guy that isn't that traditional rebounder from the power forward position, that is 6'8", a little bit smaller than you. Trey Kaufman Renn had an opportunity to have a mismatch tonight against Dylan Grant, and he absolutely found that. He was successful tonight, had 19 points in 32 minutes, and Jack Bitter was out in this game. Liam Murphy got a couple minutes, but it was going to be important for Trey Kaufman Renn to have a high-efficiency night tonight because you don't have the luxury of having Jack Bitter off the bench. So I kind of said that in the pregame that Trey Kaufman Renn was going to have a big night with Jack Bitter out, and he certainly did. 19 points, 7 of 11 from the field, 13 rebounds, and that's the big number. If Trey Kaufman Renn is able to consistently get these double-doubles, he's going to be hard to stop. This Purdue team is hard to stop because even going into this year, I don't know if a lot of people expected Trey Kaufman Renn to be a guy that is on double-double watch every single night because he wasn't the rebounder that he is this year, last year. But certainly with Oscar Clough, he's been a much better rebounder this year. He really impressed me tonight. He really got it done against Rutgers, and he's a big reason why we're sitting here with a 16-point win in game one of conference play. Because of the way that he played tonight, that double-double that he put up, Trey Kaufman Renn was the reason why Purdue got a win tonight. But the other reason, the other big player in this one was Braden Smith. And I think that this may have been Braden Smith's best game this year. He had a couple big nights so far this season, and maybe his stats didn't match what he has had in a couple games, but from an efficiency-wise, from a way that he was operating the offense, he missed a couple shots to end the game. So he ended at 5 of 11, but he started out 5 for 6, made a couple huge threes to keep Purdue in this game. And like I said, he was operating the offense at a really high level tonight. The stats may not show everything, but he was pushing the floor, passing the ball, had a couple hockey assists, had 8 assists in this game, was passing down to the bigs, was hitting Fletcher Loyer in transition for 3. He was doing everything right tonight. And this is kind of my take on where Braden Smith is and where Purdue is that Purdue, they're 8-0, so they've won every game. Braden Smith has done enough right, and he's gotten those assists, has played enough plus minutes to get Purdue those 8 wins so far this year. But if Purdue loses a game this year, when they lose a game this year, it's going to be on a night where Braden Smith doesn't shoot the ball particularly well from the field. Because I believe, and I truly do believe, that when Braden Smith is playing at his A game that he plays at, when he's shooting the ball at a high level, when he's operating the offense the way that he did tonight, Purdue won't get beat. I don't care by who. I don't care by when. I don't care about where. Purdue will not get beat this year if Braden Smith plays at a high efficiency and if he is operating that offense. Now, if he plays how he did against Memphis and he misses 16 shots, or if that offense gets stagnant and he misses some shots, now there's a chance that Purdue does lose a game this year, that they lose a couple of games this year. But when Braden Smith is at his A game, when this offense is flowing behind Braden Smith, unbeatable. They're too efficient for this Purdue team to get beaten. It all comes down to Braden Smith. He runs the show. He's the puppet master. When he performs the level that he did tonight, this Purdue team is likely not going to get beat. But He's hasn't shown quite yet that Braden Smith is going to be able to operate from a scoring perspective, not from a playmaking perspective, not from a defensive perspective, because we know what he can offer. But that scoring has been a little bit interesting to look at so far this year. He did shoot the ball pretty well tonight, and Braden Smith ultimately was able to get Purdue that win, had 16 points, 8 assists in this game. Not trying to speak bad about Braden Smith. I know what he brings you. I know that playmaking, it can't be replaced. But just back to my point, when he shoots the ball well, when he's high efficient from the field, this Purdue team is going to be tough to beat. He was there tonight. Fletcher Loyer didn't have his most efficient shooting performance, but still came out with 12 points, 2 for 7 from three-point range. He was good, okay. I mean, you're going to want him to shoot the ball a little bit better, but he had a bit of an off night. Purdue didn't really need him. They had enough pieces to score. And ultimately, that's what it came down to, because Rutgers, and we kind of previewed this, where Rutgers, they're a very solid defensive team, where they have that length, they have physicality to win games. I don't know how many games they'll win in conference play, but they can win a couple games because of that defense. But right now, it just doesn't look like they have that guy that's going to be that standout player for Rutgers, where offensively, they have a guy that can buy a basket and get a win. We thought maybe it'd be Dylan Grant, but Trey Kaufman Renn did a good job limiting him to shooting 5 for 10, 13 points. That's fine if Dylan Grant goes for that. But the rest of your starters, you had a bench player, Haran's Rowe, that played 16 minutes. A lot of those and not important minutes, but had 13 points. But the rest of your starting lineup, 2 points for Ogboli, who had a really bad night. He was 1 for 5, 6 rebounds. Clough limited him. Tariq Francis, who is another talented guard, only has 5 points, 2 for 5, 9 points from Jamichael Davis. All those were on three-pointers. And then Darren Buchanan had 8 points. I mean, Rutgers, they have a few good players. They have talented players, but they don't have the offense capable of beating a Purdue team. I thought that they came into this game playing motivated, especially Jamichael. He made a couple early three-pointers, but Purdue's offense is just too good to compete for a 40-minute basketball game. Rutgers doesn't have the firepower to be capable of doing that, and they didn't have a player really stand out that was able to compete with anyone for Purdue in this game. CJ Cox, he was okay, had 4 for 4 from the free throw line, got there a couple times, had 6 points overall in this game. I thought that he was good again defensively, but offensively just wasn't totally there. Now, Gicarri Harris was someone that I was so happy that played a good game, really impressed with. 11 points, 4 for 5, and it feels like kind of similar to last year where we got to conference play and Gicarri Harris, who did kind of struggle in non-conference play, really turns it up, gets more comfortable, and that's something that's going to be big for Gicarri Harris, is having that comfort, having that confidence for Gicarri Harris, because I think that a confident Gicarri Harris changes games. I think that he changed the game tonight when he had some of those, he had a steal in transition where he was able to get to the rim. Just very aggressive for Gicarri Harris, and 4 for 5 from the field. That reflects that. 11 points reflects that. I like what Gicarri Harris, I like what he showed us tonight, and I hope that he's capable of bouncing back, because he's going to be a really important piece for this Purdue team this year. Meyer, he didn't really play a great game. 13 minutes, 1 for 5. Jacobson only had to play 13 minutes in this game. Only shot the ball once, had 3 points. Trip to the line, made one of those. 4 rebounds, 2 blocks. He did what he needed to do. You didn't really need Jacobson in this game because Clough and Trey Kaufman Renn give you the better matchup in terms of rebounding the ball. So you don't need him as much as you would have needed him last weekend, but still has an okay game, although not scoring. Liam Murphy only shot the ball once, but made a beautiful 3. I'd honestly like to see Liam Murphy a little bit more this year offensively. I think he's extremely talented. And of course, Oscar Clough. He had 8 points, 3 rebounds. He slammed a couple home tonight that it just kind of makes you look and say, oh my gosh, Oscar Clough, can you do that offensively? I think that we're still going to continue to be impressed with the way that Oscar Clough plays basketball the rest of the way this year, his ability to rotate in and out with Daniel Jacobson. It's going to be a really good team. And ultimately, that's what I come out of this game saying, is that this Purdue team is extremely, extremely talented. We knew that already, but tonight was just another example of how good this Purdue team can be, how well they play from top to bottom. And not everyone had a stat sheet that pops the eyes, that makes you say, oh, wow, this is crazy. But everyone played good enough basketball where you win pretty convincingly behind Trey Kaufman Renn and behind Braden Smith, who had those huge nights. So overall, a fun night for Purdue basketball, a nice start to conference play, and everyone really kind of top to bottom played good basketball tonight. So a good win for Purdue. And we'll talk about what's next for Purdue. Can they run the table into 2026? After that, what happens as conference play kicks off in 2026? Stick with us. That's here next. Final segment of Locked On Boilermakers today. Thank you for making Locked On Boilermakers your first listen and for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. We couldn't do it without you guys. But let's take a look about Purdue, where they go after this game. And with every win that Purdue gets 8-0 on the season now, every game feels like Purdue is inching closer and closer and closer towards running the table into 2026, going undefeated in 2025. And with the win tonight against Rutgers, yes, this wasn't one where Rutgers was going to be favored or even be close to that, but it's one on the road, start a Big Ten play that, I mean, it makes you a little bit anxious. It was one that Purdue needed to get a win, and they certainly did get a win. So it opens up the path a little bit easier now. The big test is going to be on Saturday against Iowa State, and we'll get to that. We're going to have a full pregame show towards that one this week, but that's going to be the big one for you. There are a couple matchups in this month that I want to talk about. First being Iowa State. Obviously, this one's going to be a noon game in West Lafayette on Saturday. ESPN's matchup predictor only has Purdue as a 55% chance. And I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that Purdue has looked better than Iowa State, but Iowa State undefeated as well. They'll be 8-0 going into this game, much like Purdue, and they deserve it. This is a team with quality wins. They beat Mississippi State at home. They beat St. John's. They beat Creighton and Syracuse. Iowa State has gotten the wins that they've needed to have to make this a top 10 matchup going into Mackey Arena on Saturday. It's certainly going to be a fun one, and it's by far Purdue's biggest test towards going undefeated in 2025. I don't really feel like there's any doubt in my mind about it. I'll go into a little summary of what this Iowa State team looks like. Not too far, because I want you guys to join us later this week. But this team is going to be really, really talented. Joshua Jefferson is kind of the guy for Iowa State that sticks out. He leads all three categories: assists, rebounds, and points for Iowa State. 5 assists, 8 rebounds, almost 18 points per game. When you look at this team, it goes by Joshua Jefferson. But the thing with Iowa State is very similar to Purdue from a perspective where they have that leading scorer, but also they have those complementary guys where they play off of them. You've got Joshua Jefferson, who he's actually not their leading scorer. I apologize. I lied about that. Tamin Lipsey is Iowa State's leading scorer at 18.4 points per game, the senior guard. But Jefferson not far behind at 17.6. So they have that kind of duo of guys in Lipsey and Jefferson that are going to be really, really talented, that they're going to hurt you on the offensive side of the ball. Jefferson, he's going to rebound the ball. But they also have Torrey, who's averaging 11.7. Killian is another guard for this team. And I might butcher this name, but he's very talented. A forward for Iowa State, Milan Mopsilovic. Oh my gosh, Milan Mopsilovic. I apologize. I'm sorry to Milan's family, friends, the Iowa State fans. But he's very talented as well. 17 points per game. He's 6'8". But what I take from this Iowa State team, once again, like I took from tonight against Rutgers, is they don't have that productive big. And that's where Purdue is going to have to get teams this year. You got to play up against teams where they don't have that statement big that's going to produce at a very high level for you. And Iowa State, they don't have that guy that's just huge, can rebound the ball at an elite level. Their starters, Blake Buchanan, he's 6'10", only averages about 5 rebounds a game. You have to beat them there. I believe that's where Purdue is going to be able to beat Iowa State. But we'll get into my prediction for that one later in the week. So make sure you stick around for that one. But that's definitely going to be the game in 2025 that you look at for Purdue and say, this is going to be the tough one. This might be the one where Purdue loses. Whether they lose or not, I'm not willing to say that quite yet. I think that Purdue has a good shot in that one, but that is going to be a tough top 10 matchup at home. But then you face off against Minnesota at home, and I feel confident in this one. I don't really know what Minnesota is. Tyson is incredibly talented, averaging 22 points a game up at that guard spot. But Minnesota, they're good. K. Tyson, he's good, but it's kind of a one-man show so far for the Gophers this year. Is they have lost already 4 games this season. So, I mean, that just kind of goes to show where this team is. Loss against Missouri, loss against San Francisco, Santa Clara, and Stanford. Those are all really tough losses for Minnesota. So Purdue should have no difficulty in that game. They should also have no difficulty at home against Marquette. So, in my opinion, you kind of chalk those Minnesota and Marquette games up next week to be wins, and that brings you to the final 2 in December of 2025, that being Auburn and Kent State. Auburn is going to be a tougher matchup than people expect. It's going to be at a quote-unquote neutral floor in Cambridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, so obviously not a neutral floor, but I think it'll be an interesting matchup into determining where this Purdue team is, whether they're able to win another game on a neutral floor. If they were able to beat Texas Tech, I do believe Texas Tech is a much better basketball team than Auburn, but in the Indy Classic, anything can happen. I don't feel comfortable enough chalking that one up to a win like we're capable of doing for a Minnesota or maybe a Marquette. It's going to be a tough game, definitely, but we're going to have to see how Purdue is playing going into that matchup before I get a prediction going into that game. As of now and where I stood preseason, definitely believe that Purdue was going to be able to get a win against the Auburn Tigers. I thought that Auburn would still be a good basketball team, and I think that they are a good basketball team. They got tested early by Bethune. They play Houston really good, but they just get killed the other night by Michigan and then bounce back with a St. John's victory. So this Auburn team, a lot of question marks, kind of difficult to get a read on where they are right now, but certainly going to be a fun test, certainly going to be a fun ranked matchup for Purdue, and likely their last ranked matchup in the month of November, because they'll play off against Kent State. Kent State, certainly a good MAC team, but I mean, you don't really know where they are in terms of playing up against Purdue. You don't expect Kent State to go in to Mackey Arena and give Purdue much of a fight, no matter how good they are at the MAC level, no matter if they may get a bid this year into March. So that's kind of the look at the rest of 2025. We only got 5 games left in 2025, and all of them definitely winnable for the number 1 team in the nation. And like I said, when Purdue is at the level that they want to play out, when Braden Smith is shooting the ball the level that we know he's capable of and operating the offense at the level that he's capable of, I don't think that this Purdue team is beatable, honestly. So we can sit here and say this is a tough matchup all day long, but if Purdue plays at the level that they should be expected to play at, if they play at the level that we know that they're capable of playing at, there shouldn't be any speculation because Purdue will win these games. But every day isn't going to be your A game. There's always going to be errors, things that happen throughout the game. So it's important that we look at these matchups and say anything can happen in college basketball because we know that that is the truth. But we kind of give it a look at and say that 2025, it definitely looks like there's that opportunity. The door is open for Purdue to run the table into 2026. And before we get out of here today, I really appreciate you guys, but I want to go over the first couple matchups of conference play in 2026. So we get Minnesota. That'll be game number 2. Then we get about a month break into the start of January, where at Wisconsin, this is going to be a really tough game at Fox. And right now, Wisconsin has a 42% chance to win that game, according to ESPN. That's going to be one you look at and say, out of all these games, even against Iowa State, I think that Wisconsin on the road will be tougher than what they have against Iowa State going on this Saturday. That's just how I feel. That's how I feel about this Wisconsin team, and that's how I feel about going on the road in the Big Ten this year. It's going to be tough. Purdue, if they're able to make it there undefeated, that's going to be a really good matchup, a really high-quality matchup against a talented Badgers team. But we'll have to see. We got plenty of time before we get there. We got a fun month of December coming your way, just like the Boilermakers, who get a big 16-point victory over Rutgers tonight at the Rack. It was a fun one, and I appreciate you guys joining me today for this post-game show on Locked On Boilermakers. If you made Locked On Boilermakers your first listen today, consider making Locked On Big Ten your second listen. Craig Sheeman breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships and every game in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, of course, where it's your team every day. Thank you, guys. And as always, boiler up, hammer down.